We're officially halfway through the NHL season and it's been a roller coaster of a time for Toronto Maple Leafs fans. Not that there's any surprise there. Hi, editing Victoria popping in here to just point out that I feel like I didn't say it very well in this video, but all of the stats and everything I'm talking about is only from the first 41 games because it's meant to be like a mid-season look, like bang on, so like the cut-off was 41 games. So even though when I'm posting this, and probably when most of you are watching this, the Leafs will have played once, twice, maybe more times, I'm only talking about the sort of 41 game like cut-off mark. So that's why the stats and stuff were relevant for that, not for after then. Okay, now you may continue with yesterday me and actually watch the video. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Victoria. I talk all things Toronto sports from Scotland, and for today's video we're talking about the halfway point for the Leafs. The Leafs have definitely had some good points, some bad points, there's been some in-betweens, it's been a bit all over the place, and it's been a little bit of a weird season, but not that any season really goes as you think it's going to or hope it's going to, but this is how the Leafs have gone so far. 41 games in. The Leafs are not a bad team at all. They're really not bad. However, they're not playing like the elite team that they probably should be or could be. As I said, we're at the halfway point, we're 41 games in, and their record at this point is 21, 12 and 8. They've got 50 points, they're 3rd in the Atlantic and they're 11th overall. Their penalty killing, their defence and blowing leads are some of the main weaknesses that I think this team has got this year. And this is despite their powerful core and some really good offensive work that we've seen this season. Let's take a look at the defence first, which is what I would argue is probably the main weakness in the team for sure. Morgan Rielly is an absolute gem. I don't want to hear anyone talking badly about that man because I am a Morgan Rielly defender until I die. I think he is exceptional. He is of course the longest serving Maple Leaf. He's also just been voted into the All-Star game, which I'm super excited about because there's nobody that deserves it more than him, given that the All-Star break is obviously in Toronto this year. He is one of the most consistent players on that team, and I just absolutely think that he is underrated because usually defensemen are a little bit less appreciated than forwards are because there sometimes aren't the same fancy goals and standout things, but I don't think that should detract from Morgan Rielly's performance because he is an exceptional player. I think he is an absolute treasure of the Leafs, and just season upon season he continues to perform at such a high level, and this season is no different. Unfortunately, the rest of the defense doesn't quite match up to this standard, and it's certainly the area in my opinion that the Leafs are the weakest in this year. Their goals against per game is an average of 3.24, which is 20th in the NHL. That's really bad statistic for a team that should be a really elite team. They're not in a rebuild, they're not a poorly performing team. It should be better than that, and it really highlights some defensive weakness that exists. I'm not breaking down every defenseman individually, but Liljegren is someone I always really highly rate. Of course, he was out for a while with the injury after the Marchand incident. We won't go there, don't get me started. And I do think he's had some weak games for sure, but overall I do like Liljegren. I think he's a really good defenseman, and he's definitely not one of the problems where I think the issue lies. Honourable mention to Simon Benoit. Am I saying that right? Benoit? He doesn't have an awful lot of ice time. I believe he only averages around 15 minutes a night on the ice, but when he's on there, his physical presence is really good, and I've been really impressed with what I've seen of him. He seems to be fairly productive. I also like TJ Brodie, so again, I don't think he's one of the weaker players, but overall, the defensive group, they're just not great. They're definitely so much weaker than what the Leafs have in terms of forwards, and it's really letting them down this season. Now, in terms of forwards, this is where the Leafs' advantage really lies, I think. They're 6th in the NHL for goals per game at 3.51, and they're also 6th in the NHL for their power play, which is in stark contrast to their penalty kill, which is 24th in the NHL. Again, really shows where the weakness is lying in this team. Austin Matthews is really back on form this season. He's got 33 goals in 39 games. That means he's on pace for 69 regular season goals this season. There's definitely been some games where he hasn't been as visible, but overall he is absolutely back. Last season you could tell that there were some injuries and underlying things going on. This season he truly is back, and it makes me so happy to see, because there's nothing more spectacular than Austin Matthews on good form. Speaking of star players, Nylander. Can we just talk about Nylander for a second? Can we just appreciate William Nylander? I know a lot of the attention's been on him lately because of his contract extension, but Nylander has honestly been so impressive this year. My highlight has definitely been the Global Series games for Nylander. That truly was his, I don't want to say peak, because we're only halfway through the season and he may have another huge peak to come. But so far, in my opinion, that was his peak. He's currently leading the franchise in points with 57 in 40 games. And this is partially due to the 17 game point streak that he had to start the season, which was really fun while that lasted. I definitely think that Nylander and Matthews have by far been the standouts of the Leafs this season, followed by Morgan Rielly. Those are my top 3 players for the Leafs in the first half of the season, absolutely. Nylander, Matthews, Rielly, 100%. The most consistent guys, the ones that you really see not just pulling their weight but really producing. And there's no player on this earth who's going to have, 82 games of the season where they play perfectly. And I know that a lot of Leafs players come under fire when they don't show up for a game here and there just because of their salary and the price they're on, but I don't mind when guys are kind of less visible for a game or two, but when it's more than that, obviously I do find that really frustrating, because you need to perform at your pay level for sure. So in terms of the core group of forwards, Matthews and Nylander have been just exceptional in my opinion. The other 50% of the core, let's just talk about that for a second. Mitch Marner receives a lot of criticism, sometimes undeservedly so. A lot of the time undeservedly so, because he really does do a lot for the team and he makes some great plays. He can be really fun to watch. However, I don't feel quite as impressed by him this season as I do by Nylander and Matthews. And that's not me jumping on a Marner hate train or whatever. It's just, I personally have been far more impressed by both Matthews and Nylander, and I'll be really intrigued to see, not to talk ahead, because this is what Toronto media and the Leafs fans and everybody does, not to talk ahead, but I'm intrigued to see what's going to happen with Marner's contract being up for renewal soon. I'm really intrigued to see what's going to happen when he's eligible for a new contract or an extension, because I don't think he can be asking for any more than Nylander's on. Nylander right now is the better player than Marner, and I think it would be crazy to me anyway to offer Marner more than Nylander. I don't think he's worth more than Nylander is. But anyway, we're not talking about that. We're not conspiring about that. I'm getting ahead of myself again. Yeah, so Marner has 46 points so far this season, and he hit his 600 career point against Detroit the other night, which is always so fantastic to see players hitting milestones. Just brings me some joy. I think you need those little joys during the regular season, especially when your team isn't in their best form. It's nice to have those more individual milestones when the team aren't, they're not at their 100% best, which is how the Leafs have been recently. Finally, in terms of this core forward group, John Tavares. I love John Tavares so much. I absolutely adore him, but he's definitely in a slump. He's coming to sort of the end of this very, very high cap hitting contract, and I think that's a good thing, because he is sort of getting older. You're always going to slow down as you get older. You can't expect someone to stay at the same pace as they were in their 20s compared to in their 30s as a hockey player. That's just not feasible, and you can definitely see him like slowing down for now, but do not take that as me hating on John Tavares, because I absolutely adore him and I still think he's an exceptional player, and I really hope that I want him to stay a Leaf for the rest of his career. I want him to retire in Toronto. Like he better. He's gonna, because his family are all like settled in Toronto and I can't see them moving. And I want him to stay a Leaf until the day he retires, because I absolutely love him. But it'll be nice, I think, when his contract's up, the likelihood is he's going to sign back for like a lot less, and I think then the pressure will be taken off him to perform at an 11 million a year cap hit, when he's probably just not quite at that anymore. But he's definitely been in, you know, more of a slump. In terms of other forwards that I've been impressed with, I'm trying to keep this on like the lighter side of like what I've enjoyed about the Leafs this season. Like, don't get me going on a rant about, you know, Ryan Reeves and stuff like that. Like, I'm just, you know, the players that I'm touching on mostly are the players that I've been impressed with and why. I'm all for like having criticisms of players, but I find that there's a fine line between like constructive criticism and just like hating on players. Sometimes that line is really like blurred and crossed over, especially when it comes to social media. And I'm a fan, I'm a Leafs fan, you know, I'm a very optimistic Leafs fan generally. Like, I'm really not one of the, you know, gonna sit there and be all gloom about it kind of thing, because sports are meant to be fun and I love being a sports fan, and I always try and pick out the positives rather than the negatives. So yeah, I've also Matthew Nyes. I adore Matthew Nyes. I absolutely love him. I do think he wasn't performing quite at top line level, hence why Holmberg has replaced him recently in that position, but I think Nyes has got so much potential. He is so young and he's got so far to grow and develop still, and I'm really excited to see where he's going to go. But so far, I mean, for a rookie, he's exceptional, you know? In my opinion, Max Domi has like improved throughout the season. I was definitely not convinced at the start of the season about Max Domi, but I do really like his physical presence. He's fun to see when he's on the ice, you know. I like him. I also like Jan Krok. I also like Holmberg. The forward group isn't an issue in my opinion. Like, I really don't think that the issue lies within the forwards. There's definitely just quite a degree of defensive weakness going on in the team right now, and that's where the main issue lies, I think. And finally, onto goaltending. So of course, we all know the massive goaltending scenario that the Leafs have had this season. Samsonov and Wall were meant to be the tandem for this year, and of course Samsonov has just had massive struggles, and I have so much compassion for that man. I just think he's just got in such a rut, and it's so hard to get out of something like that, especially as a goalie. But his stats are just terrible, and they've really brought down the overall Leafs goaltending stats for this season, because he just really wasn't performing very well. And of course, I think, you know, going on waivers was probably the right decision. It gave him that little bit of space that I really think he needed. So of course Wall comes in, takes over. He was doing an amazing job. Joseph Wall is just a brick wall. His stats are really good. He's such a calm and composed goaltender, and I love seeing goalies that almost make the players on the ice seem comfortable, because they know just how in control they are as a goaltender. And let me tell you, when he got injured that game, my heart was broken. It really was. And it was probably the moment I had the most concerns about the Leafs' chances, because Wall kept them in quite a few games. There's a lot of games that I think the Leafs would have done a lot worse on if it wasn't for having Wall in goal. However, Martin Jones has come in, and given that he was meant to be a third string insurance goalie for the Leafs playing in the AHL, he's really stepped up to the mark. He now has a record of 8-4-1 and a .924 save percentage, which is just exceptional. He's really good. You know, looking at the Leafs on paper, you would probably think that their sort of roller coaster all over the place season has come down just to the adversity that they've faced between injuries, the goaltending situation, etc. But honestly, I'm still quite impressed with how well they've done, given all of the adversities that they've come into. They haven't had a plain sailing season by any means. I think they've been a really enjoyable team to watch, and I'm really excited for the second half of this season. I think they're definitely going to make playoffs, which is the main thing. You know, I wasn't looking at this team at the start of the season and expecting they were going to be President's Trophy winners, and to be honest, I'm not even sure I want them to be, given Boston last year. I think the real judgment for the Toronto Maple Leafs always comes in the postseason anyway. I actually don't think it really matters what they do in the regular season. There will always be some level of criticism over something, because, you know, when you haven't won a cup in that long, that's just the way it is, I guess. So overall, I've definitely been impressed with the Leafs this year. It could be a lot worse. Obviously, it could be better. They have areas of weakness, especially in their defence, but that's something that maybe could be worked on at the trade deadline. I'm intrigued to see what might happen there, whether they'll be able to snap anyone up in time for the postseason that could maybe help patch up those areas that are weaker. You know, that might be really good if that's something that's feasible. I'm excited for the second half of the season. I'm overly optimistic, I won't lie. Like, I want to have fun and watch my sports team, and if that means being a bit delusional, so be it. So that's all for today, guys. Comment down below, let me know, what do you think about the Leafs? What have you thought about this season? There's also a lot of new subscribers on here. I hit 2k, which, thank you so much for supporting me. I really appreciate it, and if you're new here, welcome. I really hope you enjoy my videos. I'm so grateful. I'm just so shocked that literally anyone watches videos of a Scottish girl talking about hockey and Toronto sports. It just amazes me, but I'm very thankful. If you haven't already, make sure to like this video and subscribe. As I said, I really appreciate it. It means the world to me. And I'll be back soon with more hockey chats from across the pond. Bye, guys.